In this video, we're going to talk about how I plan my routes. How to plan an RV route can be challenging, especially for big rigs. So I'm going to share my tips and tricks, and hopefully this will help you plan a better route. Stay tuned. Okay, so planning an RV route can be challenging, especially for big rigs. In this video, I'm going to share my tips and tricks for successful RV trip planning. So first off, let me explain to you what we have. Ours is a 45-foot Super C, or sometimes called a truck conversion. We're towing a 24-foot trailer, flatbed trailer, with our Jeep side by side. So we are really, really long and tall and heavy. So if you are not pulling a big rig, this video still gives you the tips on how to plan, how to organize, how to figure out how long to stay in spots. But it also will help you if you're pulling a longer rig or a big rig and you want to see how I do it. We've been doing this. We're most timers. We do have a home base, but we're on the road 6 to 8 months, sometimes longer at a time. So we are most timers. Here are the things I'm going to cover. Finding things to do in an area, state parks, national parks, Corps of Engineer, and other RV parks. We don't boondock or dry camp, so I'm not going to talk about those. We don't do harvest hosts because we don't dry camp. How I assess an RV park, and finding fuel along the way, and finding setting up our route. How do I get started? So that's the goal. Okay, I start with Google Maps. It allows me to get everything in one place and to start organizing. I've already opened the map. Okay, scratch that. That was wrong. What I meant to say was Google My Maps. You need to open Google My Maps. There's tons of videos out there if you haven't ever used them. And it allows you to create layers that you can organize your thoughts. You can create, I do for restaurants or food, and for things to do, and anything special you want, like national parks or anything else. So I hope that clears up my first fumble of many in this video, but I'll try to correct them as I go. I'm going to go ahead and add another layer. Now, ignore the layers that are there. I just preloaded some to make it easier to show you, but this is whether you're doing things to do or RV parks, it's all the same. So I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to call that layer RV parks. First thing I do is add in where we're leaving from. I'm going to say it's Tampa because that'll work. And I'm going to say we're leaving from Tampa RV Park. We are leaving from Tampa, but so I'll put that in here and say we are leaving from Florida. So I'll put that in and say that's going to be our starting point. And Vic and I have discussed it. We already know, we have an idea of what we want to do. Wanted to go all the way up the coast, the East Coast. We haven't done that. We were going to go to Maine and Vermont. And then we decided that, okay, that's probably not going to work this year. It's probably too many stops and spreading us a little too thin, trying to travel too fast. We like to have time and a place to see the things we want to see there and to enjoy being there. So we're going to kind of slow it down. So we did decide that one of the places we wanted to go, that's on probably the furthest point, is going to be Henry Ford Museum in Minnesota. So we're going to add that in, and that's some things to do. It's already there. But I've also, because we've looked at this several years, I do know that there is an RV park. I'm not sure it's the one we'll wind up. We're going to say Bal Harbour or Detroit, Ann Arbor, KOA. Ann Arbor, KOA. We're going to add that into RV parks. So what that tells me is, okay, we've got two things. We know our starting point and our ending point. Now, we might go a little further past that, and we don't have to do a direct route there, where this isn't a sprint. We can choose to go up the coast and then come back down and around to it. We can go to the, east of it or the west of it, go up to St. Louis, Missouri, and around through Chicago and over. We can go up the top of the Michigan Glove if we want, and back down. the options are endless. It just depends on what you want to do. We're going to try to keep this a little bit shorter, and I'm going to try to show you just the general idea of how this works. Sometime a trip is determined by where you want to go and when you have to be there. For example, this year we decided we wanted to be at the Big Tent Show in Quartzsite, and that really set the route in plan, because the Big Tent shows at the end of January. We knew we had to leave middle of January from Florida to get there, so that meant stay on I-10 and just cut across to get there, and possibly hit cold weather along the way. We were very fortunate. We did hit a couple days of cold weather, but we pretty much just booked right on across, and other than a few pretty cool days, we didn't have any real major problems. And with weather, as far as that is. And weather is a huge thing when you're planning. So because we had to be in Quartzsite in January, we also knew that we wanted to hit, since we were going to the West Coast, we wanted to hit the redwoods that we had wanted to see the year before and weren't able to. So we knew we wanted to hit the redwoods north of San Francisco. We did not want to get into LA or San Francisco and all that traffic, and we typically avoid big towns, so just because it's our preference. So we knew we would go up to Redding and across over somewheres there around Mount Shasta, which meant snow chains are required part of the year. We weren't going to travel if it was snowing or icy, so we needed to pick our spots carefully. We didn't want to just hang out somewhere we didn't want to be. We wanted to stay strategic in things we wanted to do and stay within the weather timeline. So that's kind of how we did this year, and that's kind of how we typically do it. You look at where you want, the main things you want to do, and then you adjust so that you hit them at the right times of the year. Also, you don't necessarily want to hit them on a holiday weekend. If you're only going there for a week or a weekend or short trips, then that changes how your dynamics work and how you do it. But if you're doing for long-term planning, for a 6-month trip or something, then you plan it a little more strategically. And we've done both. We've done short-term trips while we were working, so that changes when you can go, and you plan accordingly. But this is how we do it. So that's how we did it this year, and that's going to kind of dictate how we do it this year. We know where we want to go to. We know we don't want to get there when it's cold, so we'll look at the weather and we'll determine from there. Originally, we thought we would go all the way up the Maine coast, up here to Maine, maybe hit Nova Scotia even, go through and try to see some more of Virginia. But because we have some things at home and we don't want to be going that long of a trip, we want to shorten it a little bit. This year we're going a long time, so next year we want to shorten it. So we don't want to leave quite as early. We want to leave before hurricane season and before the heat, but not quite as early. So we're going to try to shorten the trip so that we have more time to really enjoy the places we are. And that's the other thing. If you run too fast, you don't get to enjoy the places you are. And the other thing, we like to allow a couple days at a spot extra than we think we need, because we need to do laundry and we need to do normal stuff. And also, if it's really bad weather one day, maybe we don't want to go out, or maybe one of us doesn't feel good. So we like to allow for those things that happen, life. So once we have determined that this is our starting and this is our ending, then we start adding stuff in. The easiest way to do that is to start filling in things to do along the way. Now this is just a really brief list, and I just kind of randomly picked them, but normally I will have a lot more things to do, and then I start seeing where there's patterns grouping. There's a lot here, there's a lot here, there's a few here, so I probably wouldn't go for one thing, but then I'd probably look for some more things up here. Now we could go a little past that if we need to, or not. Probably wouldn't go to this. That's Niagara Falls, and that's a whole thing to get over there. So probably gonna filter down so that we're staying in this grouping here. You can see that. And the groupings, and as you add more in, you start going, okay, I got quite a few things to do here. That determines how long I need to stay in that area. If there's only one thing to do, 2 museums or something, you're not gonna need to stay a week. But if there's a bunch of things, maybe 2 weeks. You know, maybe, you won't do any of those things, or maybe you'll do all those things. But it at least gives you an idea to start building your timeline, how long you think you need to be in an area. And that's how I use Google or my maps to get started. One of the other things we're often asked is, how do you find things to do in the area? Well, there's no shortage of things to do. State parks, national parks, whatever. I go on, simply Google, say, things to do in Detroit, or I also look at all trails. I look on Onyx for UTV trails, use Rider Planet for UTV trails. I look on YouTube, I look on Facebook, I search the Facebook archives, and if I may even put a post and say, hey, we're looking at this general area. Anybody got any recommendations of cool things to see? I also, one of the things I do is, if there is a KOA in the area, their sites always list local activities. And so your RV park websites and KOA websites, whether you're staying there or not, is a good resource to look up things to do in the area. They'll list, local, they list recreational, they list events. So that's my go-to resources. I also use Pinterest, which is something people don't often think of. So once we have a good idea of where we want to stay, I'm going to take out things to do. This is the other reason I use my maps. I can take out or put in the other stuff. There's the RV parks. I can add in things to do. I can color code these. I can set special, styles for them so that they're, uniform style and they all have the same color, or individual styles, so I can set different colors and different icons, however works for you. But I can also turn off the things to do. So once I go, okay, this is the route I know I want to stay. I'm going to hit here. I want to hit South Carolina. I'm going to hit Kentucky, maybe over here by Nashville, and go up this way. This is kind of our route. Let's just say that's our route. You will notice that I tend to avoid Atlanta. Vic and I often have the discussion, do you travel through Atlanta or do you go around it? My vote is always to go around it. Vic's is like, just drive through it and be done with it. It's really personal preference. It does get busy and you do have to plan on sitting in traffic, and it can get a little crazy, but it's all in what you're comfortable with. But so we could go this way and go up and come back around, or we can go this way and go up. It doesn't matter other than weather planning. Finding the RV parks. I wanted to add in here that I use RV Trip Wizard because it allows me to put in the order in which, and you can change them around. You can also define the dates you're going to stay. It tells you, if I say we're going to be, April 1st to April 10th at one RV, and the next one's August 1st to August 10th, it'll tell me how many days I have between them. So I can figure out, okay, I got this much time, between them that I can start filling in RV slots. It keeps me in order, and I can also lock them in. Once I make reservations, I've marked the lock to the date, and I can put notes in there. And I also do it on a spreadsheet, but that's kind of why I use RV Trip Wizard. You can certainly do it other ways. That's just how I do it, and I use it for my beginning finding the RV parks. It gives me a lot of them in the area. I can see exactly the route we're planning, and I keep it from that way. I don't think I explained that well in here, so I wanted to add that in. So I hope that clarifies some of what I'm about to try to explain to you. I typically use RV Trip Wizard. It works for me. I can put in sites and it starts mapping it for me. It shows me a lot of the RV sites, not all of them. I don't typically use the filter to filter out for big rigs. I don't find it works that well. It's not as accurate as it could be. And I will say, no site has all the RV parks. They're constantly changing. So I do Google for them, and I will look on websites. I'll look on YouTube's for people that have been in the area, recommendations, and I'll look on Facebook. But you can start putting in and getting a route, a general route. One of the nice things about RV Trip Wizard is once you find a place, you can go into park details. Now, I get a number of information from right here, and it says there's no water, no sewer, no electric, but dogs are and big rig friendly is what these icons, and it's got Wi-Fi and something else. This says Island Oaks RV Resort.
this is not always accurate, and that's why the filters, I say, they're not always accurate either. This one obviously has full hookups, so this is a reference. It also gives me reviews. Reviews are a mixed blessing. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. I always look at them, but I take them with a grain of salt. Somebody having a bad day is going to give a bad review. Somebody that's a friend of the owner is going to give it a good review. So take it for what it is. Do enough research that you're comfortable in what you say. But once you are in TripWizard and you hit on park details, I can find the features that it has, which it doesn't, it's not always accurate. It shows me their website. I can look at reviews, and I can look at weather. And it tells me the average temp for each month and the current conditions. You can do all of this without RV TripWizard. You just have to search for on Google for each of those. So for me, it's a one-stop shop. It is a paid program. I don't remember how much it is, like $70 a year or something. May have went up, I don't remember, but you can look it up and see. But you can do that without TripWizard. This is just what I use. I also look at the pictures that are posted by people and see what it looks like. This one looks really nice. I can go to the website from here and find out a little more about it. So I kind of start with that. If it looks reasonable, I'll add it on my list and keep going. Like the Ann Arbor, Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Michigan, and I will add it to the trip. I'll make it my last stop, and I can move, delete these, I can add them in, I can set the dates, I can do all kinds of things. I don't use the money. It says how much it's gonna, on average. I don't use that part. But, so I can go into Detroit, Ann Arbor, I can set up my dates and times and all that stuff, or I can look at park info. The weather, when do I want to be there? Well, I don't want to be there in March, and April's still pretty cold. So May would be the earliest we'd want to get there. June, July, August, any of those would be great. We want to be out of there before October. That's what this tells me here. The reviews, I can look some of the reviews, see what they say, and just get a general overview of it. So it's added to my list. I'll detail it later. But that's kind of how I start finding them. I also use All Stays and RV Parking. Those are kind of the three I use. And then I Google, and then I look online to see what else I can find. For us, you have to figure out what for you is required. You have to decide for you what is required for your RV parks. For us, it has to be dog friendly. We have 3 small dogs. If it says 2 dogs, I'll call and ask. I'm always honest that we have 3 dogs. Normally they'll say sometimes they'll want to charge for a 3rd dog, or sometimes they just say that's fine. And as long as they're not a problem, it's fine. They're small dogs, it'll be fine. I have had one that told us that we should leave one of them at home. So there's that. And here's my thoughts on that. It's their park. It's their rules. If they don't want dogs there, or they don't want more than 2, their park, their rules. So I'm fine with that. I just tell them thank you, and I pick another park, because that's just how it is. It is their park. It is their rules. Getting mad about that doesn't help. And there's no reason to be mad. It is their rules. So we do require 50 amp. If we're staying for one night, we can do without sewer and water, as long as I know, so we can put water in the tank. If we're staying longer than one night, we want full hookups. Do we stay without full hookups? On occasion. But our preference is full hookups. And we want a clear sky view. We want our dish TV to work, and we want Starlink to work with the skies. So that's for us. The amenities, it's nice. They have the swimming pool and the hot tub and golf club and whatever. We don't use any of that. Weight room, pickleball courts. We played pickleball once. It's fun, but we don't look for that. So we won't use any of those. So we typically don't. If they're there, they're there. State and national parks. Here's the thing. Typically, they're 35-foot max, so we're not going to fit in state and national. There are some that are bigger, and there's some exceptions, and we have stayed at some. But Oftentimes they're not near the other things we want to do, so you're doing a lot of driving. Um, Oftentimes they don't have full hookups, so you're dealing with that. And state parks specifically are extremely, they make me crazy. Because in Florida, you can book 11 months out. In Colorado, 6 months out. In Utah, 4 months out. In North Dakota, 95 days out. So I'm having to create a calendar to mark when I can book that. It gets way complicated, and I don't want to deal with it. So if there's one that I really want to stay at, or it's the best one in the area, then I'll put it on my calendar, and I'll go through the hoops to do it. But if I can find another RV park that I'm happy with, I'll do that. Yes, you get better views at state parks, national parks, but we are not RV park centric. We're not there for the RV park. We're there for the stuff in the area we can do. If the RV park is pretty and has great views, that's an absolute bonus, and we love it. But it's not a requirement. Enough space between us that we don't feel packed in is important. A clean RV park, it's big enough to fit us. Pull through is ideal, especially if it's one night. If it's one night, I'm hard pressed to book something that is not easy in, easy out one night. For one night that I do not have to unhook that trailer, or that Vic doesn't. If we're staying for a couple weeks, and that's the best one in the area, we adapt and we unhook the trailer, as long as there's a place to store it. So that's kind of our thoughts. One other thing to note about state parks, they're not always cheaper. Colorado, for example, if you stay in the Colorado park, you pay for your campground fee and a daily entrance fee for your other vehicle, which means we could have stayed in an RV park with all the amenities for the same price a lot of times.
So just keep that in mind when you're looking at state parks.
So once I figured out the tentative route, if we're going to go right or left, I start putting them on TripWizard. And I like TripWizard. I can turn off so I don't see all the extra campgrounds. I only see the ones we're doing, because I can put them in order and for how long we're going to be in each area, and kind of get a route plan. Now, I don't totally use this for our actual routing. I use a Garmin Truckers. I do Google Earth the entrances the night before, typically, if I think there's any question, and we use a Google Maps. Nothing is 100%. Trust nothing. Verify everything. But that's what we do to find it. As far as fuel along the way, we use the Open Roads app. If there's something on Open Roads available, that's where we go, because we save a lot of money. If you have diesel and you haven't seen Open Roads, you should look that up, because it does save money for fuel on the route. So I start filling all this in and then seeing how long, because it'll tell me how long to get from one park to another to another. So from Island Oaks to Detroit Ann Arbor KOA is 14 hours and 3 minutes. But we're not going to go straight. We're going to go somewhere else. Maybe Memphis, maybe St. Louis. I don't know yet. I'm working on the route. This is kind of just to get you started. But once I have narrowed down and said, okay, these are the routes I like. This is the order we're going. This is the way we're going to go. These are the stops we're going to hit. And these are my preferred RV parks for each way. If there's any question, I call
I just wanted to add in here that this is also the point. Once I have a tentative route and I've got basically how many days I want to stay at each RV park, this is when I start looking at weather seriously and saying, okay, are we going to be north too early? Is it still going to be freezing when we get to Minnesota? Are we going to be in storm season in Arkansas or Memphis or wherever? Do we want to only stay there one night so we're not in there longer? And that's where I really start fine tuning. And I also look at how far, when I do a route, do I have 6 hours between stops, or do I have 3 hours? Do I have 1 hour? And try to make sure that I spread them out, and that I try to pick RV parks to give us the best, how many hours we want to travel in a day. And also I verify the number of hours we're going to be on the road, and I verify the weather. I make sure we're not getting a check each area, and make sure that we're in the temperature the average temperature we hope to be in. Doesn't mean we won't hit cold weather, doesn't mean we won't hit bad weather, but it gives us our best chance of success. And then I fill back in on my maps and make sure that if I put 7 days for an RV park there, that there is that much stuff to do in that area, that I did pick the right one for the things that are most important for us to do. So I just wanted to add that in there because I don't think I made it clear in there where I started doing the weather. And I kind of do it throughout, but once I get a basic, I go back through and double check my weather because that is really important, especially if you're going to cold weather. So just wanted to clarify that.
RV park. There's some of them that there's no question will fit, and there's no restrictions that's going to create us a problem. So those I just book. But if I'm not sure if we'll fit or if there's questions, I will either email or call them and talk to them and ask them, tell them how big we are, and see if we fit. Before we go, I make sure I'm comfortable with all the places, that every place we fit, and that everybody's happy with it. Now, one more bit of advice.
Before I give you my one more bit of advice, I did want to mention fuel again. I know I mentioned Open Roads. There is Gas Buddy, and there's a number of apps out there. Typically, we use Open Roads. If it's not available, I'll look at Gas Buddy to help find one, or I just Google and try to and use the Garmin and try to do it. As far as the actual planning the route and avoiding low bridges or overweight, being overweight on the bridge, or passes, or all the trauma that, especially for a big rig, is out there. I have not found an absolute fail-proof way to avoid that. I will say this: uh, TripWizard does create a route for you, and you can tell it how large your rig is, how much weight your rig is, all that stuff, and you tell it how fast you're going to go. So it'll set all that in for your drive times. It will also tell you where there is low bridges or um, overweight and all that on there. And I do utilize that because it does help. Do I trust it 100%? No. We have a trucker's Garmin that we use to avoid overweight. Does it always tell the truth? No, it lies. They all lie. So trust but verify everything it tells you. We've had it try to reroute us 3 hours around because it didn't know that the bridge had been updated. We've been coming out of Walt Disney World in Florida. If you are on the trucker's route, I guarantee you it will take you the worst possible way to get out. Is it doable? Absolutely. It is a trucker's route. It is not the route you want to take out of Disney World. So you kind of have to Google it, use common sense, and pay attention. As far as low bridges, that is like my worst nightmare. And I, I don't have a good thing. Our Garmin Truckers is supposed to tell us. We do look for overhead signs. If I have questions, I'll go on Google Earth and search an area. I will say East Coast seems to be worse for that than West Coast, although there are some there. And the mountain passes, I've got, different books and stuff on that. I haven't found one that I'm 100%. You just pay attention before we start each travel day. We look at the Garmin Truckers. Use Google. I do try to verify the route looks okay. And we stay on main roads, so we don't do back roads. That helps us a lot to keep us safe. And, just use common sense. So I don't have an absolute guarantee on any of those. The mountain passes, they've snuck up on us a time or two. And so just be aware of those when you're out there. And when an RV park, when you call and you talk to them and you get your reservation and all, and they say, yeah, you'll have no problem getting in. You can't miss us. Believe nothing, because I've had them tell me that. And when we get there to turn in, it's like, holy crap, they think we're going to make this turn. So just be aware, stay calm in it. We try to just look at each situation and figure it out. What's the easiest way to get through it? And then if we have to go on down the road and find some place to turn around, we do. It just can be challenging. So, and that's true for all of us. So as long as you stay calm, think it through, it all works out. So that's one piece of advice. Now, on to my one more piece of advice for when you get to an RV park and you're trying to park your rig.
Once we are finally on the trip and we're having, we're started on the trip, we're having a great time. Parking is always challenging at campgrounds, whether you're a big rig or a small rig. We have a couple simple rules. The things we do is we take our time. We both get out and look. Vic typically decides where he's going to pull, how he's going to back in. He's the driver. He makes those decisions. So he gets out and tells me his plan, where he plans on pulling up and how he's going to back in, where he wants the back of the trailer, what things he wants me to look at. I also am looking around the area, and anything that I don't think he saw, like a low-hanging limb or something on the ground, I'll point that out so he's aware of it. Then we use radios if it's a tricky site to back in. The other thing is sometimes the camp host or someone there will say, oh, I'll back you in so you don't have to, and that's fine. Always appreciate the help. However, I will be outside watching too with the radio. We have a long-standing rule that the thing is, nobody cares more about your rig than you do. That person may have the best of intentions, but he also doesn't know how long it takes for that rig to turn. He doesn't know the details, and he's got no skin in the game. If he backs you into a tree or into a ditch, he's just going to say, oh, dang, sorry about that, my bad, and walk away. So when somebody else is helping Vic, if I don't see anything, I don't say anything. But if I see something going wrong, I tell Vic to stop. And our rules are clear. He listens to me before he listens to someone else, because no one cares more than me and him about the rig. So, when in doubt, he's gonna err, stop, get out, and look.
So I hope this little bit of information has helped. I didn't really go in how to use RV Trip Wizard. I do use it to put all my days in. It tells me how many days between stops. So if I put one in, I know we're going to be in July in Detroit, then it'll tell me how many days between the last RV site. Just keeps track of all the dates now. So if you haven't looked at it, take a look at it. That's what I use. I also use a spreadsheet, but that's just me. So, but that's pretty much how I plan. I just spend a lot of time looking, and not easy, but we've done this for about 5 years now, and most of the time it works out well. Every now and then it's just a little more challenging than others. So, as I said before, look at open roads. If you use diesel, that's a great resource for saving money on fuel. So I hope this gives you some ideas on how to do your planning, maybe gives you ideas you haven't thought of before. If you have suggestions or things you do that I have not thought about, please let me know in the comments. We can all learn from each other. I would love to hear your thoughts. If this was helpful, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. And as always, we really appreciate you watching, and we'll catch y'all down the road. This is A Way to Travel.